Once there's like a lot going on, so it's neat to have something to talk about. Then I gotta go to Blue Meat Spring after that.
There you go.
Look at the crowd. 8 seconds.
We're going to call the County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Samasco,
Present.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Here.
Commissioner Beeden,
Present.
Commissioner Torello,
Here.
Commissioner Rushing,
I'm present this time.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch,
Here.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Here. Additions, deletions, changes to the agenda, seeing none. Do I have an approval?
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed. Item 6, A through C.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve and file the minutes of the 3/16/23 commission meeting, the 405 workshop, the 405 standing committee meetings.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. No proclamations, consent agenda.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve items 8A through 8F on the consent agenda.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. Reports of standing committees. Mr. Samasco.
The only thing I had done was the Parks and Rec Committee, and it was a regular meeting. Nothing really to report other than they are considering coming to the board in a while to look at some issues with funding and revenue and the potential for what they call a supplemental millage perhaps to close the gap on some funding issues. The parks are developing in a way, they've been here, so many years, are developing to where the revenues are starting to be a bit problematic to maintain the facilities we have, yet the millages pass. There's a lot of facilities, people like them, people want to support them, and they've been trying to figure out the best way to maintain everything to a level that the county, that the citizens want. So there was some discussion about that. One of the things they're doing is they're going to have say Fort Gratiot Park will have a non-resident user fee. So you have to buy a ticket to get in. Residents can come in with X amount of people and get free parking passes and so forth. I haven't seen all the details, but those are the kinds of things they're looking at to get ahead of any issue with revenue streams and park maintenance and all that. So I've learned a lot. I've been on the board there for 3 months, and there's a lot of moving parts there. It's a big department and well supported by the public, and that's the only committee I attended.
Yeah, and to your point, when you and I first got on the board back then, we had one county park. I think
We
at
brought
eight.
the Fort Gratiot Lighthouse came in during my
Yeah,
first term.
yeah, and now we have the park in the southern end of the county, so as those parks, develop, obviously more.
As an example, too, the Fort Gratiot Lighthouse is a National Historical Site, and it's, the feds oversee it, so there's like a $700,000 thing they need to take care of to put it back in a certain way, so they've got a timetable to meet, and so they're looking down the road to look at all those kinds of issues, and the people coming to Fort Gratiot is quite astounding, the number of people that come, go up in the tower and enjoy that, and so it's a very viable department for us.
And it is starting, this year, we approved it last year, that's $20 per car if you are not a county resident.
Something
If you
like
rented the pavilion, you get 10 passes for out of county.
Something like that,
So,
yeah.
and they've already put up the booth.
Right, and then AT&T donated the feed for the booth so they can take credit cards. That was another issue on broadband. They didn't have, couldn't run a credit card out in that part of the township. So AT&T ran a fiber line out there, and now they can run credit cards, so a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Georgia?
I have nothing tonight.
I attended the Board of Health meeting. A lot of it we talked about in our previous meeting, and there are some things on the agenda tonight, but I would just like to compliment Liz and her team, Dr. Rahman and Greg and everyone, really thinking about strategically where does the health department go from here, and they've done some really good work, and there's some exciting things coming up.
David?
I attended the Homeland Security Advisory Commission, and we've got a mock disaster coming up in the south end of the county. They're actually going to try and splash an ultralight and do some dive team operations along with some rescue and environmental controls. I believe they're trying to put this on all by this coming Saturday, so we want to stay in the south end, stay out of the South Channel. Also, we had a meeting with Ken Cummings and Tina Bricker about issues with dispatch right now. They're getting overwhelmed call volume, so we tried to minimize the number of departments on each call and to try and spread us out a little bit more, and it's not going well, so.
What's the reason for the spike?
Society. They call on everything, and it's hard to get. You ever see on these TV shows that the dispatcher stays online with till the responders show up, and that doesn't happen. They're going to the next. They just have to keep moving, and it's hindering service. And so I think you're going to see Tina and Ken Cummings coming in front of us, say we have to come up with some different ideas. We have to get something, work on our dispatch center, personnel-wise and either technology-wise or training-wise to make some changes. And just by pure call volume, the number of phone calls we're receiving at the center is, just giving a heads up.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yeah, I met with, or talked with 4 of the townships I represent and went to meetings. I also met with the city of Memphis, and pretty much with our discussions that we had tonight, and I told them we're going to be discussing it, and I'll get back with them. So they were concerned about what's going to be happening with the funds also. That's about it.
Okay, Joy?
I have nothing for this evening, thank you.
So I've had 2 very interesting meetings at the landfill recently. One is a fertilizer company, weirdly enough, out of some other country, can't even remember the name. But they have this product that it looks like we're going to be able to mix it in with some of the solids or some of the liquids for the bioreactor process.
On the leachate? On the leachate?
Well, so we have the septic tank haulers You inject a septic into the receiving station, takes the solids out, it takes the liquids out, and this product, it looks like there's a good chance it can help enhance the actual chemical breakdown of the trash that much faster and then produce more methane. So they're gonna do a little test run on this stuff, it sounds like, trying to figure out the right spot where to inject it, landfill. Pretty interesting. Then I had a meeting today on biodiesel. Company looking to, basically biodiesel is food, fat, vegetables, not vegetable oils to this, to that. They have a process which they come in a very similar process. You can inject it into the receiving thing and then it burns off and it creates a biodiesel, and companies are funding these things and so on and so forth. So they're in discussions with Matt. Everybody, this whole, whether you like it or hate it, or renewables and biodeals and fuel, we've seen a lot more activity in the alternative energy space than we have in like forever. So our landfill is kind of like lots of conversations, and you and I went to a couple other ones out there. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff what you can do with it. So more to come. Additional revenue sources at the end of the day is what we're looking for. So with that, I'm going to move on. Oh, and actually, last one. So as you guys know, I do the bands in St. Clair, and we did little pop-up bands for the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that good weather stretch there. And one of the bars down there, and I'm not going to mention any names, Warwater, he had 4th of July-like numbers, they told me, with just that, with the having the bands, people know that we're doing entertainment. We had a couple on Friday that came up. We were down there, my wife and I, and we had an extra table. They sat down there from Shelby Township, and they were from Chesterfield Township. They started coming up, and they said, we knew you guys would have something going on, so hopefully we continue the cause and just do some really neat things down there. So with that being said, I'm going to go to citizens wishing to address the board. Kathy Capone.
Hello, I'm Kathy Capone from St. Clair. Thank you for this opportunity. These are not, this is a letter from Helen Hermes that I said that I would have put into the meeting because she couldn't be here tonight. She's at her own planning zoning commission. Issues 26-mile corridor. In 2021, a presentation of the 26-mile corridor was made to the public. Questions were not fully answered. The majority of the residents of St. Clair County since that time have expressed they do not want to destroy St. Clair County by replicating Macomb County's mistake of overdevelopment. St. Clair County is a beautiful county with an exceptional amount of natural beauty. This is what should be promoted. A wonderful county to visit and live in. Industrial development has no place in St. Clair County when the residents have made their love of the natural beauty of the county known. A study has been made at the cost of $147,000. How much more will be spent as the residents keep expressing they do not want the 26-mile corridor in our county? It is time to stop spending tax dollars on the project. The answer has been clear from the residents. As a side note, she also added, please get a timer that shows the start time and the time left to speak. At times, a person should be allowed extra time to finish when it is a topic such as the 26-mile corridor. Respectfully submitted by Helen Hermes, Clyde Township. My own thoughts on this are, yes, I agree with the timer. It would be nice to have something where if you're up here speaking, you could see it yourself automatically. And as for the 26-mile corridor, my thoughts were made at the last meeting in the beginning of the month. I think development is good, but I think our economy is so bad right now, and we have a big election coming up, and I think that now is not the time to get into this. This is a big project, it's gonna go on forever, but I also think you need to think about how many projects in the past, how many malls had to be built. Every community had to have a mall, because that's where the development was, that's where the tax base was, that's where the money was. 30, 40 years later, those malls are sitting empty. Strip malls, big box malls. So that could be the 26-mile corridor too. 30 years from now, they won't be down there on 26-mile road. They'll be up in Sanilac looking to dig up more roads.
You need to wrap it up, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Turk.
When I first got elected many moons ago, I had to take a class through Michigan Township Association to teach newly elected people, and it was called Who Do You Work For? The theme of the class was to listen to your constituents, and if you're not working for your constituents, then who do you work for? This has carried right through my political career and today. So I asked this body tonight, who do you work for? $147,000 weight trim study. It was done on Marine City Highway corridor. Mr. Young stood at this very podium where I am tonight from weight trim and not said it once, not said it twice, but said it 3 times that the residents along Marine City Highway want that stretch of highway to remain rural. At the very end of that meeting, Mr. Baum says, that's great information. We can't wait to put factories in these people's backyards. You did not listen to these people as you are still moving forward and not listening to the people. $400,000 for a performing arts theater. You've got to be kidding me. I can count $1 million on my hand that has been wasted out of this fund. This fund has been raped and pillaged like the pirates of the Caribbean. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But let's forget about the $147,000. We can forget about the $400,000. We can forget about the million. But the guy, the money that was intended for, the guy that was out of work for a year, the guy that can't put insurance on his car, can't put mac and cheese on the table for his kid, that guy can always make it to the theater. We're all elected. We all took an oath. We all took a statutory duty to our community. You are not fulfilling your statutory duty if you are not bringing these funds back to your community. They're watching you. They're watching you every single meeting. And every one of us will have a November, and we will face a ballot box. And some of you, it may be sooner through a recall. Who do you work for? I yield back. Thank you for your time.
John Thompson. John Thompson.
Hello, John Thompson from Cotterville. I remember when there used to be a roadside park out by County Line, and it was surrounded by trees and fields. Now there is an indoor baseball training center and an industrial park behind it. Now that roadside park is just a memory. And at one time, not so long ago, there used to be a few people that used to sell their fresh produce during the summer and fall at the southeast corner of County Line, out the back of their truck. Now that's just a memory. I remember driving home during the summer and noticed an older woman who would be on her riding lawnmower keeping her country yard cut. Now her house has since been torn down by a local developer waiting to be turned into an industrial park. Now her house and yard are just, a memory. It won't be long before the small farmhouse next to hers will see the same fate. About 2 weeks ago, driving home, I seen in a farmer's field, there were 10, 12 deer out there, and I thought to myself, what an amazing sight, and how lucky I get to see this on my way home. I hope this never becomes a memory. I live out here for a reason, and it's not for industrial parks, subdivisions. It's for our small towns, rural areas, natural beauty, and wildlife. I don't want it to look like another Macomb County. Why don't you fill the vacant buildings in Marysville and Port Huron with high-paying jobs for St. Clair County residents first? Green City Highway could use a few light improvements like some right and left-hand turn lanes, but not turn it into 4 lanes, industrial parks and subdivisions. Once they get their foot in the door, it's all over. Say goodbye to our rural area, small towns, because once it's gone, it's never coming back. It'll be gone. It'll be just a memory. Also, congratulations to China Township for opting out and using their money for their projects. Other townships need to follow this as well. Thank you.
Rob Uzakowski.
Thank you. I've already talked to many of you, so I think you kind of know how I feel personally. Our township did adopt a resolution. I'm supervisor of Kimball Township. I guess not necessarily opposing or being in favor of the 26-mile road project. Our feeling is that it should be up to those communities to decide what direction they want to go. If they want to pursue that, then they should absolutely pursue that. If they don't, then they shouldn't pursue that. For us, though, as a community, we had a decision at the beginning to make whether we accepted the ARPA dollars or not. I mean, most of us in our township, we hated the fact that the federal government was spending more money. But at the same time, if we didn't accept that money was going to go somewhere else. So for us, our taxpayers are going to pay for that, whether we took the money or not. So we decided to take $973,000. And we're putting it to use. We did some surveying and some other things to determine how the community wanted to use that money. For us personally, what we think would be the best thing to do with the county's money is to distribute it out amongst the communities. I know that creates some conflicts and some difficulties in tracking and other things. I know earlier in the meeting there was a question about the limitations on use, but in the beginning, we all assumed that there were limitations on use of the ARPA dollars. So we familiarized ourselves with those uses so that we were prepared to move forward regardless of what the federal government decided. Luckily for us, at some point in time, the Treasury flipped a switch and we call it the standard deduction, but if we got less than $10 million, we pretty much were unlimited unless we calculated lost revenue, which we weren't going to do, which was confusing as I'll get on to begin with. But so we're using the money pretty much how we deemed it was necessary. But we are prepared to use additional funds if they were to come our way based on the Treasury's ruling, all 147 pages of it. So we're very familiar with that, and our request would be that the county consider evenly distributing that back out to the communities. Thank you.
Linda Schweihofer.
Good evening, and thank you again for allowing me to have these few moments to speak to you. I attended the China Township Board meeting Monday night, and there was a crowd, not 1 or 2 or 3, but I mean, we had the place pretty much packed. And they let their local officials know that they are not in favor of a 26-mile industrial corridor. And fortunately, we had our board who actually listened to the people. And by a 3-2 vote, we passed a resolution that stated that we were not in favor of a 26-mile road industrial corridor. We basically want sort of hands-off. We have a really good zoning and master plan in our township that's fluid. I mean, we look at it. And so we wouldn't want to become a part of some umbrella of zoning that might take place along that area. Another thing that I wanted to mention was, when I came in, I feel unfortunate that I wasn't able to be here this evening or this afternoon for your workshop. I couldn't get here that early, so I came to the table up here and asked a couple of our representatives if they had come to some conclusions yet about doing something fair and equitable. And Mr. Van den Bosch said, we're going to do something fair and equitable. We're going to spend money in the county. And I would applaud that. I am not against seeing some monies of that, the ARPA funds, going to some capital improvements, things that really need to be done. But I would ask that the remainder of those funds be distributed equally to all of the communities, so that whether it's IRA or whether it's China in your district, that everyone would receive an equal share, not a large share here and a little bit over here, asking really for something that would be fair and equitable. One of the other things that I wanted to say, we had Mrs. Masters come to our meeting, and we really appreciated the fact that she came, she stood with us, and she told us that, you know, their community has passed a resolution, just like, you know, the gentleman here that talked from Kimball. So I would ask again that you please listen to the people. Not only is it what we're supposed to do, but we do have, you know, there's an ethical thing going on out there too. So I hope you remember the ethics of things. So having said all that, I thank you for your time, and I hope you're listening.
Abigail Hicks.
I guess I'm going to get a little esoteric here. Governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You are our representatives. We have a republic, not a democracy, a republic. That means we're represented by our elected officials as we choose them. So why are decisions, or how can decisions be made regarding the use of our taxpayer dollars, because it all ends up coming out of our pocket one way or another, to do things that are not in the best interest of the community where you're proposing this be done. Because our inalienable rights, also life, pursuit of happiness, and freedom, all encompass how we live our lives, where we live them. And doing a project such as this, when so many people have concerns about how this is going to affect our community, needs to be respected and needs to be listened to. And that doesn't mean then you go find money somewhere else to do this project, because you're still, and I'm making a general statement because I don't know who or what, but are still determined to see this project go through. So let's get the money somewhere else. And then I have to ask, who is this benefiting? And it sounds like if that's the case, the benefit is to the person who's pursuing this project, regardless of how their constituents feel. They're pursuing this project, and what are they getting out of it? Because I have to ask, it has to have something to do with their benefit, not ours. So you as elected representatives need to think very carefully about the decisions you make that affect all of us. And we did vote to have you in these positions. So please consider what our wishes are, and not just ignore them and gloss over them, because there's a lot of money to be made, and it's going to be put in somebody's pocket, and it's not going to be ours. So with that, I thank you.
Elizabeth Krill.
Good evening. According to the Michigan Farm Bureau, Michigan is one of the most diverse agricultural states in the nation, and farmers are the second largest influencers of Michigan's economy. We produce more than 300 commodities, making it the second most agriculturally diverse state in the nation. Approximately 95% of Michigan farms are family-owned, multi-generational livelihoods, like Dave Van Bosch, and like my husband's family, who has farmed in the Thumb for over 5 generations. Agriculture is more than $100 billion of the state's economy, making it our second largest industry, and it employs nearly 1 million people, which is 1/4 of the state's workforce. The Bell River Watershed Management Plan recommends that we prioritize the protection of our natural resources, including prime agricultural land and what they call rural character. In 2023, we are learning that there is far more to conservation than we have traditionally thought. In 2019, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, bought Smithfield Meats. The same year, a disease that killed hogs resulted in a pork shortage in China. In response, Smithfield, which was then owned by China, changed their production to supply China with more pork, which resulted in a shortage and higher pork prices in the U.S. So science is warning us to take more care with what we put on our land, and world politics is warning us to take more care in which foreign entities we allow land ownership. We don't know who is looking at the 26 Mile and King Road area because of the NDA. But what we do know is that money can't be the only aspect of the issue. We need revenue, but not when the way in which you want to raise the revenue is at the detriment of the people. Jeff, I'm going to pick on you only because you're the chairman and that's what comes with the seat. Jeff, maybe you're a nice guy, but I feel that I can't trust you to not make the downriver area the next Marshall or Big Rapids, potentially sacrificing our way of life to a foreign-owned company that not one patriot in this room would support doing. I see a bigger picture than just how you plan to distribute the ARPA funds. I say no to a loan to Ira Township, but Jeff, it sounds like you are working on state and federal funds to do what you want to do with 26 Mile Road rather than what the citizens want to do with 26 Mile Road. There is money in agriculture, tourism, homeownership, and commercial businesses. If you want to take care of your constituents, plow under blight and bring in U.S.-owned cattle, hog, dairy, and for crying out loud, chicken farmers, because look what we're paying for eggs.
You need to wrap it up, please.
Okay. Bring in U.S.-owned industry and locations that support the master plans and scholarly recommendations for land use. That was it. The only other thing is I just want to remind everybody of the town hall. Are all of you attending the town hall on the 26th?
I need to cut
No?
you off.
Okay. Just wanted to know if you were all planning to attend.
Okay. We're going to move on. There's no unfinished business to come before us this evening. Item 12A, the approval of county disbursements.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the February 2023 county disbursements in the amount of $29,703,253.92.
Support.
Thank you.
Just a quick little, if you haven't been to our meetings before, these items were all on our agenda previously in our committee meetings, and they got moved on to the full board. So if they seem like we go through them fairly quick, they were discussed previously. So, questions? Roll call.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Bosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item B.
This time I move to approve policy 326, the social media policy revisions.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item C.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act grant agreement for a term of January 1, 2023 through September 15, 2023 in the amount of $52,722.
Support.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed. Item D.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to appoint the following individuals to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Dan Fuller for Facilities, Joe Pemberton for Facilities, William Herpel for Hazmat, Sherry Faust for Health Alternative, Bill Adams for EMS, Matt Biskiner for EMS, Nick Sage for Hospital, Tony Emmerich for Hospital alternate, Matt Pohl for Law Enforcement, alternate, Sarah Manu for Community Partner, and Bonnie Lentz for Transportation.
Support.
Discussion. David.
What is the term of these positions? Is that on there? Carrie, how long are these positions? Is it a standard 3-year?
Know that off the top of my head. I can get back with you on that, though.
Okay. She can get you the answer at the next one. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed. Item E.
This time I would move to appoint Stephen Beck-Sicken to the Aeronautics Advisory Board as the Southern representative for the remainder of a 3-year term expiring September 30, 2025.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed. Item F.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the rental agreement with Tri-County Equipment for a John Deere 5125M tractor for the airport for the term of 6 months in the amount of $13,800.
Support.
Discussion. Now that we're just talking about airport stuff, off topic, I guess, we have sent out requests for proposals, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Draft deal.
I do have an update for you during my administrator's update.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item G.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the lease agreement and consent of owner for hangar T3 between Phil Gilbert and Warren and Kim Tappert.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item H.
This time I move to approve the agreement for ambulance millage distribution with Clyde Township.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed. Item I.
This time I would move to approve District 1 Commissioner American Rescue Plan project for Lynn Township. It's a tree removal project in the amount of $4,200, previously approved, I believe, by my predecessor.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item J.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with Pro West and Associates, Inc. for GIS services for a term of 4/20/23 through 4/19/26 in the amount not to exceed $50,000.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Vanden Bosch?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item K.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with Waste Management for the term of March 1st of '23 through September 30th of '26 in the amount of $85,000.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed. Item L.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with Kerr Albert for a term of 4/2022 through 12/31/24 in an amount not to exceed $330,000.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bo.
Yes. So item M, internal ARPA projects. We had a workshop earlier, about an hour and 40 minutes worth of discussion. Talked about some internal, didn't really how we're going to move next steps with some of the additional funds, but I think we were all in agreement that Carrie's list that she had submitted, which was roughly $7 million of internal projects that we were going to allocate, I guess, put funds aside, I should say, then the department heads then will go out and get the request for proposals and that type of thing, and then we'll come back to this board at a later date for approval on those items. Am I correct?
Except you'd add that items keyed as green and
Blue.
blue.
Green and blue
would
were
be
the
ones-
eligible.
Would be the ones that were eligible and prioritized. That was my understanding.
I think
Did,
the motion just needs to be, well, you got the motion.
no, I have not.
I think the motion just has to state you're going to give her direction to get 7 million, and then she'll come back to it with the exact specifics.
I had one point that we maybe should bump that up just for cost of inflation and actually add a little to it just in case, because some of the bids were older that you received, and to give her a little more room to.
We can always, if they come back to us, so, and if we just say it's 7 now and they come back to us and then we got to bump them up, we can do that too. So we'll start with 7, and if we
Okay.
need to move that.
I didn't want to go quite that much, but I'm going to support 7 based on the discussion we had, and I'd appreciate if we kind of stick to that unless there's some good cause to exceed that down the road.
Yeah, and we'll probably find out sooner than later on some of them when we start, when we start doing things. So do I have a motion? Can I get a motion?
Who's got that motion?
I'll make the motion. Who has it? Yeah, who has it?
Well, nobody would have it because we didn't have a set dollar
At this
amount or anything.
at this time, I would move that we allocate $7 million from the remaining ARPA fund unrestricted balance to be attributed to county operations on the capital improvement list as presented by the document, the memorandum you gave us with those items keyed in blue and green, correct? Total 42 million, but you carved out the blue and green items.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that we'd be.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bo.
Yes. Item N.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2304, honoring the Michigan Association of Counties 125th anniversary.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed. Item O.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandums of understanding with St. Clair County Community Mental Health Authority for a Recovery Court Program for a term of April 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, in the amount of $20,000.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bo.
Yes. Item P.
This time, I would move to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Blue Water Day Reporting Program for Recovery Court Program for a term of April 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 in the amount of $17,000 and no cents.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Torello?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bo.
Yes. Item Q.
This time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the District 3 American Rescue Plan project for the replacement of an existing porch with handrails and deck for the Sanborn Gresham Memorial Home in the amount of $4,625.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Rushing?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandenbosch?
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden,
Yes.
Commissioner Torello,
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item R.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Jay's Pro Services for mowing foreclosed properties for the term of April 24th of 23 through October 31st of 23 in the amount not to exceed $30,000.
Support.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner Vandembosch,
Yes.
Commissioner Samasco,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Beeden,
Yes.
Commissioner Torello,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushing,
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Bone.
Yes. Item S.
This time, I move to adopt Resolution 23-06, approving the 2023 St. Clair County Equalization Report.
Support?
Discussion. Steve.
Joy had called me earlier today to ask me a question, and I didn't have the answer. And the percentages contained in there, those come down from the Department of Treasury as far as what's going to be allocated, and then how does that work exactly?
Our equalization director, Justin Sears, is here, so he can answer your questions.
Get up to the mic there, Justin.
So if I understand your question, you were asking if the percentages in the report reflected the ARPA funding, is that?
It was more along the lines of when our taxable, my understanding, the state of Michigan pushes down the assessed value into this county, and then the counties push it down to the townships. And then there's heavily limitations on the elevation of the property valuation subject to the rate of inflation. Is that kind of how that works, or am I off track on that?
I can't speak on how the ARPA funds, how that's.
It wasn't for ARPA funds, it was on the, I'll call you, I was on the equalization report as such, as far as how that works for valuation of the properties within the county. That's a general question, but I'll call you.
So just valuing the properties within the county and the.
Does it come from
each
the state? Is
class?
it, the state pushes that number down to the county, then it gets pushed down?
Oh, I'm sorry. I understand your question now. So the valuation that's reported here, it starts with the assessor. I was actually going to kind of speak about that. For our property tax system, I'll just kind of give a little background real quick and I'll make it brief. But there's three levels there's three levels in our property tax system. You have the local level, you have the county level, and you have the state level. The local level, to keep it brief, that's your assessor. Your assessor puts the value on your property. So each parcel out there, each property gets a value assigned to that property, which is 50% of true cash value. That assessor then creates a roll that combines all those parcels with the values on it and turns it over to March Board of Review. And at that point is when the taxpayer has a chance to protest those values. After that, the March Board of Review, they have their total valuation if they make adjustments or if they don't. But after they make the adjustments, then they send that roll over to me, the equalization director, and then my team, my staff and I will review that, and then we look at that to make sure that it's being valued at 50% of true cash value, otherwise known as equalized. And so take that a little bit further for county equalization, what we do is we look at, instead of per parcel base, we will go out and do samples of different properties throughout St. Clair County and through the townships, and we look at the value per that township and per that city per class. So there's your agricultural class, your commercial class, your industrial class, your personal property. We break down the value per class across the townships and the cities, and that's how we look at it. And then we submit our values, which is our recommended county equalized values, which is why I'm here tonight presenting those values. And then we get the approval from Board of Commissioners. And then I have to take and submit those values to the state. And then they do a similar process, but instead of looking at the townships and the cities, they're looking at the counties across the state on a per class basis, commercial, industrial, agricultural, so on. And then they'll hold their state equalization, and then once those values are approved by the State Tax Commission, then it becomes the state equalized value. So it starts out as assessed value from the local assessor, and then at the end process, it becomes a state equalized value. that kind of answer it?
Answer your question, Joy?
Yeah,
Joy
I
called me and I
did come
couldn't
in and I
answer.
talked to
Sure,
Dina
go ahead.
briefly, and so she was trying to guide me through the percentage that I questioned. I wasn't really sure that if everybody, it was on page 4, there was a 10.59% from the year of 22 to 23, and I wasn't sure if that was a percentage that everybody got. I wasn't sure how that was all laid out, but.
That's a great question. So the increase of the 10.59%, and again, I'm going to have to break this down just to kind of explain it. That's the county equalized value that I just spoke about, the assessed value, county equalized, and it becomes state equalized. So we'll say that's the county equalized value, but that's the total value for St. Clair County. So this year it's just over $10.1 billion. Last year, the total county equalized value, personal property, all the classes I just talked about, it was $9.1 billion. So this year, we had an increase in our equalized value of 10.59%. What that reflects, though, is what the market did. So that is looking, there was huge increases with the market, not only with the market, with inflation, I should say, but also any new projects, any new building, that type of thing. It looks at all the new building, which is considered new value added to the roll. Any value from the market. When I say market, I'm talking about if when somebody sells their house, that shows what the market is willing to pay. So we look at, when I say samples in the assessor, we're looking at all the sales that happen in St. Clair County. And we're using those sales to determine what the market's doing, and that's how the values are shown, or how we are computed.
The two big ones was the DTE plant went on the tax rolls. We sat down and we actually, Justin and the assessors from East China, Gary Fletcher, the top tax people from DTE, and we went through the numbers, settled on the numbers, and
That's
just.
a negotiation, Jeff, kind of?
It wasn't a negotiation, there's a certificate of need, there's a number, just to make sure we were right on that number. Talking $957 million in, in new value. And so you want to just make sure everybody's on the same page. There's some of the depreciation, there's some of the China Township kind of going down. So we talked about those numbers. But, yeah, they were great to work with, and that's the Magna plant in St. Clair. That's a couple $100 million too. So you're talking about a couple major projects that hit the tax rolls here in St. Clair County that, we didn't have previous. So that's substantial.
Yeah, and there's a graph later in the booklet there that shows that you'll see where in China Township the value's going down, and East China's going up, and largely reflected from the power plants that Commissioner Bohm just spoke of.
Any other questions for Justin?
Just one. Seeing how there's a $507 million approximately taxable value, that's how much more money the county's going to get?
That's the taxable value.
I know.
Yeah. So
The answer's no.
Yeah, it equates to about, it's 7.18% increase in taxable value. And so you can take that, and it still isn't exact, but it'll get you close.
He's good at math, he'll figure it out.
I already know the figure.
All right.
All right.
Anything else for Justin? Motion to receive and file his report.
Before I leave.
Do I have a motion? Oh, you need some signatures.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. A motion. Oh, we already had a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Item T.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 Port Security Grant application in the amount of $429,709.
Support.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Item 13, Administrator's Report.
First thing, Commissioner Rushing, I would like to answer your question. The terms for that, there actually is no expiration, so those individuals remain in place until the board chooses to replace them. RFPs for our lobbyist legislative services have gone out, and they will be due back mid-May. Our current contract with our lobbyists expires at the end of July, so there will be time for the board to consider candidates in June with a recommendation to come back to you in July for your approval. We also received 3 bids for the airport FBO. The evaluation of the proposals is currently underway, and as part of our due diligence, which we did the last time we did a full RFP, is we also are evaluating the cost and the feasibility of bringing those services in-house with county staff and comparing those to the bids, and we will also be coming to you with a recommendation with that in the next month or 2. More RFPs were issued. The broadband consultant, we received 9 bids back, and the prices ranged from $70,000 to $500,000 for those consultants. Those RFPs are being reviewed by an internal work group. We will probably interview 4 of them, and we'll be coming back to the board with a recommendation. Pension fund, retirement board met earlier this week. We're starting to see slight gains or turnaround from our 15% loss last year. The pension fund is up 4% the first quarter. And the retiree healthcare trust met earlier this morning, and that had a similar increase of 3.7%. That fund is still below where it was at the end of 2020, though, so we do have some significant gains to make up from last year's losses. Earlier this week, myself and 2 commissioners attended a presentation with Coast TV regarding some of their marketing and promotional services they provide. I will be bringing their proposal to you next month for your consideration. And earlier, I believe it was last week, I met with the Michigan Association of Counties consultant. They have a consultant on staff specifically to manage opioid spending and assist counties with their spending plan. I went over our process and our spending plan with the consultant, and she was very impressed with our process and has actually asked me to do a presentation at a future MAC learning session. So far, most of the counties, only 1 other county has come forward with a process, so they're looking to put together some educational series on that. And that's all this evening.
Any questions for Carrie? Steve?
I just want to thank you for this opioid process that you had presented. It's a kudos to you for that. To have somebody have you present on a state level, it sounds like shows that our administrator applies herself well to her job. Thank you.
Anyone else? Got a motion? Receive and file the administrator's report.
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Miscellaneous business to come before us. Steve?
I had a letter show up at my personal residence from Lynn Township, reference 26 Mile Road. Appears very similar to a lot of the ones I've got on the internet that were sent around from, I think, from Dave's district. And then there was another one from Birchville Township. I just want to pass those on to the, make it part of the record that I received them, and Jeff can put them in his file, I guess. If you're going to tally them up or what you're going to do, but they were for not supporting the 26 Mile Road corridor as such, as presented with the large numbers down to Ira. So.
Yeah, I got copies of those too, so.
Okay.
Any other miscellaneous business? Seeing none, receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 16, adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.